Of course, these days you have to deliver your final projects in a variety of sizes, forms, codecs, and even whether they're designed to be played back on a computer or on some sort of device such as a tablet or a phone, or even back on a television set via streaming. Well, Premiere Pro uses the Adobe Media Encoder engine and can provide all of that with a few clicks. Now, I do want to point out that you do not need to render your timeline before you export. As a matter of fact, most of the time, that would just be a waste of your time because Adobe Media Encoder likes to go back because Premiere Pro likes to use the original raw, unrecompressed footage to create your final video, which is going to give you something that's sharper and clearer. Now, you can use the render files, but actually it probably takes longer to set up than to go back and actually export out from the original media. Now, to export out something for a device or for the web, go to the File menu, Export, and once again, like we did in the previous video, choose Media. Instead of selecting Match Sequence Settings, I'm going to actually choose my format. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and you can see the variety of output formats. I mean, you can pick, in this case, H.264, which is a flavor of video. I can put out QuickTime movies. I can put out just audio. I can put out image sequences if I have to take it into animation. I can even make MPEGs for regular DVDs, also MPEGs and H.264 to put onto a Blu-ray disc. Now let's start with QuickTime. Once I select QuickTime, my choices down here are going to change. So for instance, I chose QuickTime and my presets are specific for QuickTime. And in addition to having the default presets, you can also create custom presets in Adobe Media Encoder that you can then use from within Premiere. So this is very nice if I need to deliver something with a QuickTime wrapper with some very specific codecs. And I say that because once I choose QuickTime, I can choose the preset, and then I could click down here and choose what codec I want to export it with. Now, most of the time, you're probably using H.264 for web delivery, but sometimes for masters or for your clients, you may need to deliver something more specific. For instance, you can access any of the codecs that are available on your system. And I point that out because depending on the platform you're editing, that is, whether you're editing on a Mac or a PC, some of these settings are not available to you. Most codecs have been licensed by Adobe, but there are some manufacturers that only want the ability to export that codec on their own machines. So if you're on a Windows machine, you won't see ProRes as an export option, even though you can import and playback ProRes files. Now, if I switch from QuickTime to another format, you'll notice that my drop-down choices will change. In this case, I am going to go back and choose H.264, which is a great web and device delivery platform. I have choices under presets that are specific to a lot of the popular devices that are available on the market. If I continue to scroll down, you'll notice that I can also export using codecs, frame rates, and sizes for both YouTube and Vimeo that allows me to upload them directly to their web servers without them having to be re-encoded and having that extra quality loss by the extra compression. Now, in addition to being able to use these presets, you can modify parameters using any of these tabs. So for instance, in the case of video and H.264, there are some elements that I can change and modify. One that I usually do like to work with is bitrate encoding. Now I'm going to click on this and just quickly explain what these three options are. CBR, VBR, and then VBR 2-pass. Well, basically think of it as CBR is faster to encode but larger files. VBR 1-pass are smaller files but may take longer to encode. And VBR 2-pass is even smaller, probably a little sharper, and will take longer than the previous two to encode. So as you go down the list, you're going to be trading off quality and size versus time. The faster your processors, the faster your graphics card, the faster this export will go, and I personally like to use VBR2Pass whenever possible. It'll also show you the estimated file size, and this is a best guess based upon the size of the original file. But it's not a guarantee because it's going to be a lot harder to compress, say, a car race than a talking head. Once you've played around and made your decisions, you can go ahead and use either the Q or the Export button. By hitting the Q button, it adds it to the Adobe Media Encoder queue, and then you can step back into Premiere and continue to edit. If you hit the Export button, you're completely locked out, but your export's going to be faster. So let me add this to the queue, and you can see there it is, 01 timeline, with all of my requested export settings. Once again, if you want, you can change any of the export settings at this point, or if you need to, you can duplicate the file and choose a different export setting and batch export multiple versions of your program at the same time.